It's pecuniary, publicity, or pussy. And that's the word. David Boies.
Sorry, you're back there.
David Boies is known among lawyers and among people in his own law firm as the Harvey Weinstein of the bar.
Yeah.
He has had sex with numerous associates and other members of his firm, clients, prostitutes in Las Vegas. He has a sordid, horrible reputation and history of sexual misconduct. So I don't know whether he's acting out. And he knows, he's told me, I'm not that kind of a person. He's basically said to me, I'm not, you, Alan, you're not like me.
Yeah.
And so he went after me. So it's partly financial. The firm is tottering. He's in very, very bad shape. He's had to sell his winery and other things. They've had to lease some of the offices. The firm is going to hell. His reputation is shot after the Theranos case and the Weinstein case and other cases. And he wants to become a hero of the Me Too movement. But he's doing it in the Boies way, through questionable conduct and extortionate means.
Yeah. And so let's move to the Netflix documentary. So what I've noticed is that throughout this entire saga, the self-described victims, the accusers, seem to have as much airtime. They can say as much as they like. However, the accused have had their interviews heavily edited, heavily manipulated. With Netflix in particular, you've gone on record as saying that you provided them with information that they then just omitted completely from the case. Can you explain that a bit to people that be watching?
Well, it's much worse than that. First, they lulled me into doing an interview because they said the producer is the former brother-in-law of a very close friend of my wife, and he wants to give me a chance to tell my story. The whole purpose of getting me on camera is to give me a chance to tell my story, to make sure my side is presented. So I agreed. I gave them, I didn't just tell them, I gave them, I showed them, I gave them the tape recordings. I played for them other tape recordings. I showed them all my travel documents. They promised me they would use it, and they deliberately failed to use it. They knew that Virginia Giuffre is a liar.
Yeah.
They knew that Sarah Ransom had admitted that she lied and made up the whole story, and yet they put Sarah Ransom on without mentioning that, or without mentioning the fact that she accused Hillary Clinton of being a pedophile.
Yeah.
And so, I'm suing Netflix.
That's where I was going to come to. You are suing them at the moment. Can you give us an update on that?
Well, they didn't make a motion to dismiss, so they admitted that my lawsuit is a valid one. We're now in discovery, and we're trying to get the depositions on the producers, on the directors, and try to get them to produce all the evidence they had and didn't use. And so when the public sees, when the jury sees that they had tape recordings, that they had documentation, they had everything proving that Giuffre was a liar and didn't use it, clearly that's malice, and that's enough to justify a very, very large verdict. Again, I'll give it to charity. I'm not looking to make money on this thing. I'm looking simply to have the truth come out.
And how do you think, so you've been a victim yourself of not just of the terrible accusation that's been made against you by Giuffre, but also a victim of the media. This has very much been a trial by media. How, with your own experience, how do you think the media are reporting on the Ghislaine Maxwell trial and the accusations against her in general?
Horrible. And they've been dealing, and the British media have been dealing horribly with the accusations against Prince Andrew, all one-sided. I have offered over and over again to various British media to tell them the truth about Virginia Giuffre. They don't want to hear it. Yeah. It interferes with their narrative about Prince Andrew. They don't want anything to interfere with their narrative about Prince Andrew. So the British media have been horrible. The American media have been horrible. And by the way, behind a lot of that has been the lawyers for Giuffre, who have very good contacts with the media and who we know have made deals with the media. We'll give you Virginia Giuffre, but you have to promise you won't have this information about her or that information about her. We know that happened. We know what happened with the Miami Herald as well, and other newspapers that are trying to get Pulitzer Prizes for their one-sided not reporting but advocacy.
Yeah, and there's no one better to ask really than yourself about the American legal system. Do you think that she's currently getting a fair trial?
Maxwell? Oh no, not even close. First of all, she should be out on bail. The idea that so many people have been out on bail, in the recent case in Wisconsin, a guy goes out on bail and then mows down 5 people. Bail is the norm. There's a presumption of innocence, and her denial of bail is inexcusable. That's number one. Number two, the trial is not going to be a fair trial. It's going to be impossible to get a jury that hasn't been in some way influenced by media accounts. She's not on trial. Jeffrey Epstein's on trial. She's a surrogate for Jeffrey Epstein, and so I don't anticipate that she'll get a fair trial. And
as we've heard in the past couple of days, Virginia herself, the most outspoken accuser, perhaps one of the main reasons why Ghislaine was arrested to begin with, won't be a witness. She's not been called by David Boies, but at the same time, that David and others have said that they will be briefing the press, and Virginia is free to speak to the press. Do you think that's fair? Firstly, what do you think that the implication of the fact that they haven't chosen her as a witness is? And secondly, is it fair that she is allowed to influence the press, influence the trial by making further accusations during the trial to the press?
Well, it's obviously important that she isn't being called as a witness. I think it would be unethical for prosecutors to call her as a witness, knowing what they know. If they did call her, they have to disclose to the defense everything they know, all the investigations, including material I've given them. Remember, I sat down with the U.S. Attorney's Office and gave them all this material about Giuffre, so they had it. They would have to turn that over to the defense. And so it would be unethical and foolish to use her as a witness. Now, what David Boies is saying, so we're just going to have her talk, not be subject to cross-examination, not talk under oath. I challenge David Boies to allow me to be at her presentation and confront her with the truth. And let's see how she answers those questions. I have a lot of good questions to ask her, and the media won't ask her those questions. The media will just sit back and wait and listen, and won't ask her about Al Gore, won't ask her about Bill Richardson, won't ask her about George Mitchell. George Mitchell, one of the most honorable men in the world, the man who brought about both the Irish peace process and the former Yugoslavia peace process. She accused him of rape, essentially, and she's never been called to account for that. He's denied it categorically, says he never met her. One of them is telling the truth, one of them is not. Obviously, I don't know who's telling the truth, but I know that Virginia Giuffre can't be believed about anything. And she has lost her credibility completely. And I think the attorney knows that.
You've mentioned yourself that you have you can prove that Virginia was lying,
right?
And no one's asked you about that proof. To be fair, in the media, I very rarely see any.
They have asked me, but they haven't put it on.
Yeah. So what proof? What proof is it that you have?
They've recorded my answers. They have photographs of my documents, and they deep six them.
So what proof do you have? What evidence, just to show that Virginia's completely? I know that we know